Hey, lemlisters! This week, I'm super pumped to be joined with Alice Heiman, who is among the world's leading expert on complex sales. Alice, thanks a lot for joining us today.
I'm super excited to be here. I always love to stream live on Facebook, so thank you for having me.
Yeah, that's really awesome. Today, we're going to discuss actually the lead qualification process. I know you've been coaching tons of sales managers from all over the world. So we're really looking forward to getting tons of insights from you with very concrete examples. So I'm going to start with the first question so we can get straight to it. Essentially, in the first phase, how do you identify that a lead that can become a successful customer?
I think that's a very important thing. And part of this is a company-wide issue, and part of it is salespeople. So the CEO and leaders of a company really set the vision for that company and the direction and where the company is going. And it's important for salespeople to know that, and so that sales and marketing can target the right audience. And I always say that it's easiest to sell to people who believe what you believe. And you might have heard something similar from Simon Sinek, because he talks about that too. But what we want to do is put ourselves out there in a way that attracts the type of companies and people that we want to do business with. And so that is a lot about the vision of the company, the leadership of the company, the mindset of the people, because the words that you use and the stories that you tell are going to attract the kind of people that you want. So it really starts there. And with our target audience, we want to be very specific. Sometimes I think, and especially today, that we're making it so hard for salespeople to sell because we're not targeting our audience carefully enough. We're not being specific about the types of companies. What we want is huge quantities instead of quality.
Do you have like an example, for example, for our audience of a company that's doing the targeting like really right and they're attracting really the good type of audience through, I don't know, their marketing or?
So one of my clients, several of my clients do a very good job of this, but I'll tell you the story of one of my clients. They're a telecommunications company, and they sell phone communications, which these days includes texting and voicemail and routing and all kinds of tools that you can use to improve your communication internally and externally, most importantly, so that your customers can reach you when they need you. And what they have done has been very specific about the verticals that they're going to sell to and about the types of companies inside those verticals, because they have a lot of competitors who are much bigger than they are, and they don't want to go after the whole world of people who are going to buy phones and communication. They're going after a very specific niche, and they chose to go after a niche that is franchises. And those types of franchises that have small business owners in them. And they do very well because the messaging that they provide speaks directly to a small business owner and how they can use these tools to improve their business and increase their sales.
Yeah, that's awesome. So essentially what you're saying is like the first step really is to have an alignment within the company between marketing, the C-levels, and also the sales. So whenever you're addressing a market, you know exactly where you're targeting and you can focus at first on a niche or at least on a vertical.
Right. And so your website speaks the same language as all of the marketing you send out, speaks the same language as all of what the salespeople say. And as the leaders, the evangelists are out there on social media, they're saying the same message as well. And when all of those messages come together, people understand what you sell and they can be attracted to it.
Nice.
And so I think it's important for everyone to be aligned and on the same page and really presenting that message to the people who are most likely to buy from them.
Okay, awesome. And basically, like, let's say that let's take to the next step. You have like a lead that came to your website, entered all his information. What type of information would you be looking for prior to a call?
Well, today especially, I want to talk to pretty much everyone. If they're interested in us, I want to be interested in them, because you just never know. I mean, even if they can't buy from you, you want to conduct that conversation in such a way that they leave feeling so good that they would refer you to someone else, or if they move to a new company, they would call you there. So even if they can't buy from you, and you'll determine that fairly quickly, you still want to have a wonderful conversation, because that just puts another person out there who would recommend you. And that's really what we want.
How would you know that they would not buy for you, like from you? Like, is there any question that you typically ask, or what the process look like?
So if it's an inbound lead, I would imagine that they're going to buy something from someone.
Yeah.
But I don't want to sell them the wrong thing. So as a salesperson, my job is to help, and I help by solving problems. So what I want to find out, if you've called in to me or filled out a web form and you're interested, I want to find out what problem you are trying to solve. What caused you to look for a company with the types of products that we have? That's the first and most important thing I need to know. Not whether you have a budget or not, because most companies can get a budget for what they need somehow. And I want to understand from you, what's happening at your company right now that caused you to have this challenge or this problem that you're trying to solve. What other methods have you used to try and solve it? If you don't choose us, would you have an internal solution that you plan to develop yourself? What other ways could you solve this problem? And I really want to determine if my solution, my offering, is the right way to solve your problem. And if it's not, then I want to send you off to find someone else who can solve it. So that's really the biggest qualification. Am I the right solution for your problem? And to do that, I've got to dig in and understand your problem and the other things you've already tried in order to solve it.
I think, yeah, you make like a very interesting point. And as a CEO, like I understand it, it makes a lot of sense. Like you want your salespeople to really help out to figure out like solution, and also be able to say no if it's not a good fit. However, as a salesperson, sometimes, and I've done like so many demos that I know that feeling, even though the person is not the good fit, sometimes you feel like, okay, you have your target, you have your bonus, you want to hit them. So obviously, sometimes you're going to try to close, even though it's not a good fit. So what do you usually say to those type of salesperson that, tend to be like, I would say hardcore closer, or really like just trying to close the wrong leads, which will eventually get disappointed with the solution and probably like also ruin kind of your brand image and brand identity.
They'll have buyer's remorse and it will ruin your image. Yeah. Absolutely. So this is really, I'm talking to you, the CEO right now. We put tremendous pressure on salespeople.
Yeah.
And what we need is CEOs and senior level leaders who understand that we are here to solve customers' problems. And then when we cannot do that, that we must let them know we're not the best one to solve the problem. But when I put pressure on my salespeople with a quota, then they do crazy things to meet that quota. They'll do anything. They'll lower the price. They'll give away the whole store just to get that deal. And that is not a good thing. But of course, we need enough sales to have the cash flow that we need. So as leaders and as the CEO, it is really important for you to make sure you are supporting sales in the proper way. You are having your marketing team and sales work together to generate qualified leads, so that most of the people that you're talking to will
good
be
fits.
a good
Yeah.
fit. And the salespeople have the opportunity to close the deals. But we really have to tell our salespeople that, you know, they have to be a good fit, and we have to relieve some of that pressure by reminding them that close dates come from customers, not quotas.
Yeah.
And even though we give you a quota to give you a little pressure and a little push, what we want to always do is have the customer in mind. And if it's turning out that salespeople cannot close enough deals, then leaders, CEOs, it's up to you to see what's happening. What has changed in the market? What training do our salespeople need? What support do they need to be given? Because sometimes it's the salespeople just really don't know how to sell well enough,
Yep.
or target the right audience, or we've made it hard for them to sell in some way. So it really has to come back to the leaders to help figure that out.
Awesome. Yeah, I really like it. I think it's always interesting because at the same time you want to put like quotas because it's important to be able to see the ROI of your sales team. But on the other end, as you said, you don't want really to push them too hard so they don't go the right path.
Right, because people under pressure are not doing their best work, number one. When they're desperate, customers can feel that, right?
Yeah, true.
And then they are forced to do something that they really shouldn't be doing, like lowering the price or kind of forcing something to close that shouldn't be closing.
Yeah. And during the discovery calls, is there anything that you would advise people to do, or that where you see like people not doing and they should really do it?
So I think a discovery call really is something we don't do well overall. So first of all, salespeople have to be curious, and that curiosity must start before the call. So I must do my research and understand the customer, the industry that they're in. I want to learn as much as I can about their mission, their vision, how they help their customers, what their problems might be. And I can learn a lot of that on the internet, but I might also learn it by talking to some people who buy from that company or some of their salespeople before I go in and talk to the buying influences. So I need this deep curiosity. And then with that, not only do I want to plan questions to ask, but I want to plan what insights I can bring. And so call planning is something that seems to have just gone by the wayside because I've got to make 100 calls a day and send 100 emails a day. And I've got all this pressure and I better hurry up and do my job. But again, this mass quantity is not producing good results. We see it with every SDR team that I've looked at. More email and more cold calls is not giving us more results.
Yeah.
Our results are still so small, so minimum. So if we can bring this quality to the discovery call and the person is like, wow, Alice, you really did your homework. You know about our company. And then if I can say to you, gee, here are some insights. Here are what some of your competitors are doing and what some others in the industry are doing that is really successful. I can share some things with you, or some research, for example, from Gartner or one of the other big analyst firms that will help you have a better understanding of what you're doing. So I want to be curious and start preparing way before I make that call, and then want to plan the call. I want to plan the questions I'm going to ask and the information that I'm going to deliver that will bring insights. And then I want to practice all of that. I want to think through it and maybe even practice with a teammate before I get on the phone with the actual customer.
Okay. And basically, like, how do you make sure, because if you gather a lot of information, I think sometimes when you know a lot of stuff that you've just learned, it can sometimes be overwhelming and be just, like saying all the information through the phone, and then the person would be like, okay, am I getting a lesson or something? Or so how would you bring that smoothly so it doesn't really look as if, you were a consultant or something?
Gee, that is so important. I'm glad you brought that up. Well, we can't. Selling is not telling. You've heard it a million times, right?
Yep.
And that's an important thing to remember. Selling is not telling, but we are so excited about our products and services. And if we did our homework, we know so many things. I just want to tell you all of it. But we really can't do that. And so I'm going to say something that I hope everyone really holds on to. The only time I am 100% certain that I have your undivided attention is when you are talking to me. So if I want the buyer's undivided attention, I have to get them to talk to me.
Okay.
Because if I'm talking, I don't know, maybe you're thinking about dinner or your kids, or maybe you're thinking about some work problem, nothing to do with what we're talking about. Your mind is wandering. But when you're talking, I know I have your undivided attention, and I've trained myself to be a good listener. So I'm going to listen and take notes, and what you say, I'm going to think about and be able to respond to. So I have to get you talking, because the only time I'm 100% sure I have your undivided attention, which I need, is when you're talking to me.
Okay.
So all of you salespeople out there, talk time down, listening time up. Sales managers, when you're coaching, when you're listening to calls, make sure that your salespeople are not doing all the talking, that they're listening, assimilating the information, feeding it back and asking more good questions, and then delivering an insight.
Okay. So for example, let's say that you have like, I don't know, like marketing agency, or and you're targeting like a big cosmetics company, and you've done your research. You know that in the cosmetics industry, people are going all in on Instagram influencers. Instead of saying people are going all in on Instagram influencer, you can ask the question like, what's your strategy regarding Instagram or something?
What do you see? What's
Okay.
your strategy? What has worked?
Okay, awesome. Okay, and then dig in, and if sometimes the occasion comes up, you can start saying that, oh, actually, I don't know if you've seen that article or that. Okay.
You can tell a story then about another company who used Instagram really well.
Okay.
But I want to give you a tip on how to be a good listener. So once you've asked a question, you have to pause long enough for the person to formulate their answer and tell you. And sometimes we get so excited when someone doesn't answer right away, we just answer for them. Or we ask the question again. So be okay with silence. Ask your question, pause, let the person formulate their answer and answer you. And then when they have answered, don't jump in to ask another question. Pause again and see if they add anything. And if they don't add anything, say, is there anything else?
Okay, I see. And essentially, like, how do you make yourself comfortable with silence? Because for me, to be honest, silence is sometimes like super awkward. And the way I was doing it is I was counting, you know, like I was like, okay, you have to wait at least for 3 seconds. So in my mind, I was like 1, 2, 3, and then not saying anything. But is there any like tactics or thing that you use, you know, to make yourself more comfortable?
I think it's just practice. I do count in my head also sometimes. So I think that's a wise thing to do. Just count 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000. But make sure you're listening to them, right? You know, if they start talking, right? Silence does sometimes seems awkward, but for you, it's awkward, but for the other person, it's not, because they're thinking.
Yeah.
So if you ask a question, I need time to formulate my answer. Not everyone is so quick on the draw, right? Some people need to think for a minute first. And once I've answered, sometimes I think of something else, but if you cut me off and ask me another question, then I don't get to tell you that. And often the information I give you after the initial answer is more important than my initial answer, because I thought of it by telling you my first answer. So get comfortable with the pause. Just relax, let go of the outcome. You're there to have a conversation and learn and share.
Yeah, that's really nice. I think it's going to inspire a lot of our listeners. And do you see sometimes a difference between, you know, like because obviously you have different type of deals, deal size, and sometimes, you know, when you go at like large enterprise sales deals, the deal can become really complex. And during the discovery call, you're not always with the decision maker, obviously. So how do you make sure during the discovery call, when the person doesn't have all the answers, to trying to figure out and get the answers you need actually?
Yes, that is something you have to become very good at. I think that today, especially, there are so many people involved in a complex sale. Now, going back to the customer I mentioned earlier, their sale is not particularly complex. They're going to talk straight to the business owner, and then sometimes maybe like the person who manages the office or something like that, one or two people, and the decision will be made in a fairly short period of time, a few days or maybe 2 weeks or something like that. But most of the companies I deal with have a very complex sale. There may be 20 million, 30 million, $80 million companies trying to sell to companies that have billions of dollars in sales. And so those big companies have so many people that have to get involved in the decision. And so when they are doing their discovery call, typically it is only with one or two people, but they know, oh my gosh, there's 8 other people I'm going to have to find before I can close this deal. So one of my clients who sells software for sales enablement to very huge companies who have large distribution networks, they sell through distributors and resellers and things like that, and need all that product information at their fingertips. So the seller has to not only talk to the people in marketing, but the people who manage these large channels. And so they have to figure out, okay, how am I going to get to them? So if they're talking to, let's say it's a marketing person, and that marketing person is very interested in how this product will make their life easier and make it quicker for them to get information in the hands of the salespeople, they have that perspective and that view of the back end of all of these collaterals and materials that have to be out. But the sales leaders have a different perspective of what the salespeople are going to do and how they're going to use it. So if I'm talking to the marketing person, I'm going to have to ask them questions, not only about how it's going to make their life easier and how they'll do it with their department, but I will have to ask them, how will the sales leaders feel about this solution? And how will their salespeople use it? And will they use it? And of course, the marketing person won't know the answer. So I'll say something like, would it be possible to get the sales leaders on a call with us so that we can ask them these questions and find out how to make it easy for them to get their sales force to use a tool like this? And then, of course, they say yes.
Nice. Nice. That's really cool. We actually have like a few questions from the audience. So if, by the way, for those of you who have joined a bit late, we're with Alice Heiman, the superstar. Tons of value. So for those of you who are late, you will be able to rewatch everything in replay on the community. And if you have questions, you can always ask them in the comments. Vuk from my team is sending me everything, so don't be scared. The first question actually was, what kind of clients would you refuse to work with?
Well, that's a really great question, something I'd like every company to think about. But as a salesperson, you have to be careful, because on your own, rejecting customers might make your sales leaders or your CEO upset. So it's a discussion that we have with our sales leaders, who should have that information from their leaders, right? From the company leaders. But there are times when we really should refuse to work with a company. I still like to do it as gracefully as possible, because you never know what the future may hold, or those people may go to another company that is more suitable to work with you. But for the first thing I want to tell you is, don't do business with people who treat you poorly or who are rude to you.
Okay.
No one deserves that.
Actually, that's sorry for interrupting, but it's just that it happens to some of my sales rep actually a couple of days ago, and he was wondering, like how would you react when someone, for example, like they don't show up to a meeting, they don't apologize, they treat you like badly or speak to you rudely, like how exactly would you handle them? Like, would you write a message clear saying you've been rude, we don't work with rude people?
Yes,
Or
yes.
would you, how would you frame it?
That's a great question. So sometimes when people don't show up to a meeting, something happened and we have to be concerned about them. So I always say, I'm so sorry that you couldn't make our meeting. I hope you're okay and everything in your family is fine, and that we can schedule again. If they don't apologize or don't respond, I might send them one more email saying something like, I know we weren't able to meet at our scheduled time, and you did have some interest. If you still have interest, would you let me know so we can reschedule? And if you are no longer interested, that's fine. I hope you found a great solution. Please let me know that also. So that's what I do in email. Now, if someone is rude to you on the phone, if they're talking to you or on a video meeting and they're rude, the first thing I want you to think about, is it really about you or is it about them? If they're yelling or being abusive in any way, you just need to say, I can see that this is not a good time for you. And so unless you can calm down and stop yelling, I am going to hang up.
Okay.
Just give them that notice that you will. Maybe they had a bad day or they hurt or they're sad. We don't know. So we want to give them a chance. And maybe they don't even realize it. Some people just yell, But if you feel like they're being abusive to you, immediately stop the conversation and say, I will not tolerate your abuse, and therefore I am hanging up. Don't just hang up. Say those words. I will not tolerate your abuse. You're yelling curses at me and I will not tolerate it. So I am going to hang up. Now, if someone's just kind of like overly excited or frustrated, if they're frustrated because something happened, your company didn't serve them well or something, then you have to be very understanding of that. I hear that you're frustrated, and you have to use the same force that you're using. Don't go, oh, I see you're frustrated. If they're saying, you say, I can see that you're frustrated and I am sorry about that, but I want to let you know that I'm going to help you. So let's work together.
Okay.
And that will calm them
down a bit. Yeah.
But if it doesn't, say, maybe there's a better time for us to talk about this. Would you like to schedule? And if they're still rude, you simply have to say, it's obvious that you're not in a condition to have this conversation right now, so I am going to hang up.
Okay, nice. Yeah, you at some point you have no choice, no other choice, and okay, that's interesting. And there's another question actually from the audience. Early on, we discussed when a deal was essentially not a good fit and that you had to say no sometimes. But you also mentioned that, eventually, we never know, they can change company, call you back later, or sometimes even give you referral. And that person is actually asking, could you, do you have any tricks to trigger that referral? Like if the call went well, you had a chat for like, say, 30 minutes, you found out that your solution was not the right one, you maybe guide them towards a competitor or something else, but how would you get that referral or something? Do you have like triggers, questions, or things that you can use?
Well, this just happened to me the other day. Someone that I worked with at their former company was at a new company, and he had called me and we had chatted a few times about the sales there. But his CEO really wanted to talk to someone about leadership communication, and it wasn't really specifically about sales. So I sort of knew going into it that I wasn't going to be the right solution, but I do know a lot of people, and I knew that I would probably be able to recommend someone. But after talking to this CEO for a period of time, I said to him, no amount of training, I don't even know any person who is going to be able to solve this problem for you. But as a CEO for over 20 years and having worked with lots of CEOs, may I give you some advice about what to do? And I did. And he was shocked that I did not try to sell him anything, that I did not even refer him to another person. I said, it's just not going to solve your problem. And he said, wow, you've given me so much to think about. I did give him some solutions to try that were nothing to do with training or me or really something he had to do as a CEO that would be hard, but he had to do it. And yeah, at the end, he actually said to me, I would refer you to any of the CEOs I know, but I'm not really sure I understand what you do actually. We didn't talk about it. And so I told him that I gave him a brief explanation and then told him I would send him some links to some of the things that I can do. So I think sometimes when you're so gracious and so giving and so helpful, people naturally want to help you. But you could also just simply say something like, I really enjoyed talking to you, and I hope that sometime in the future, we might get to work together on a different project, or if you're at a different company. And I bet you know people who could use my offering. I'd love to have an introduction. So if you think of some people that would like to hear about how I might be able to help them, would you be willing to introduce them to me?
Nice. Yeah.
Pretty simple. Keep it simple and human. Hey, we had a great conversation. This is not a solution for you, but it might be a solution for someone you know. And I would really appreciate an introduction if you meet that person. Just something like that.
No, that's really good. Yeah, I think another thing that people might try also, because sometimes I feel like when you give too much choices to people, they are sometimes confused. So I think another thing we tried that was working pretty well is, whenever we have a call, or when I was to do like demos, I would check out the LinkedIn profile of the person. Yes. And maybe check out, 2 or 3 first degree connection of that person. So yeah. If I know the call doesn't go well, or it's not a good fit, but it went actually really well, I might ask, I saw that on your LinkedIn profile, you knew that person, and that person. Do you think you could make an intro or something? And sometimes it's easier. Yes. Yeah.
If you're prepared ahead of time,
yeah,
that's great. But also, I sometimes say to people, listen, it sounds like you know a lot of people that might be able to do services. Would you mind if I look through your LinkedIn?
That's good.
And ask a couple of, for you to give me a couple of introductions, and they always say yes.
That's really nice. And because I think something that's very different from like in the US versus Europe. So maybe you can give us a bit of better insights, in the way you do introduction. So I know, for example, like some people, but when they ask me, hey, Guillaume, like, could you do me an intro to that person? For me, it's a lot of work because I have to type the email, blah, blah, blah. And it's really annoying. Like, I will do it because I'm like super nice, just kidding. But essentially it's annoying. However, sometimes you have people that are really like, okay, can you do me an intro? Here's what you can copy paste and maybe edit, up to you. But it makes my life easy. Like, how would you recommend people like doing this?
I recommend that, just what you said. I prepare them. So I say, gee, I really want you to introduce me to Tim. I know you're good friends because you're always, together. And here's what I'd like you to say to him. And of course, feel free to edit that yourself. I do the exact same thing that you do. Awesome. But I also keep it really simple. And I do use LinkedIn. I tell people, if you want an introduction, I'm going to do it through LinkedIn because that's the easiest way. Then I have less explaining to do. When I have to do it by email, I have, explain who this is, explain who that is. Here's why I think you should be together, right? But on LinkedIn, I can just message them both at the same time. And I can say, I'm connecting the two of you because I believe there are business synergies that you should explore. I hope that you'll get to know each other and talk soon.
Nice. Yeah.
So it's easy for me to do it. So, but if you expect me to help you by giving you an introduction, yes, you should make it very easy for me to do it.
Awesome. Awesome. Talking about LinkedIn, by the way, guys and girls, make sure to add Alice on LinkedIn. Vuk from my team is going to put in the comments her LinkedIn profile. Make also sure to add a note, because I know Alice receives like hundreds of connections. So make sure to say, I don't know, do you want a magic word from this presentation, or just to say that they've been watching it?
Well, you can mention the sales automation family, you can mention G, but do mention how you met me through this event, because then I'll know and I'll more quickly accept you. Because otherwise, the people who don't send me a message, they just sit there for a while till I have time to do more research. So if you want to get accepted instantly, then say that you met me here. And if there's something specific that you want my help with, please let me know that, because I have lots of resources, my own and from my other friends that are sales experts, and I can send that information along to you.
That's really kind. And to get back to our question, we were discussing a bit like the complex sales deals, and often we talk about finding a champion. Do you have any like tips, recommendation on how to find a champion, and also how to make sure that your champion is actually a real champion and not, like a guy that's saying he can do everything, but actually can't really?
Yeah, just an information giver that's very friendly, right? So
exactly.
A true champion is someone who wants your solution.
Okay.
And they're going to do whatever it takes to help you get it. And they have to have influence with the other buying influences as well. Or it doesn't matter how much they like your solution, it's not going to be helpful to you. So how do you find this person? Well, it's become harder these days, especially when we can't go meet people in person and spend time with them and get to know them at a dinner or cocktails or, with over coffee or something. So we do have to figure out ways to use video, have a video coffee time and chat, or sometimes I like to have cocktails with somebody via video. So I have a more relaxing time to talk to them. So the first thing really is just that relationship, right? You have to have a building of the relationship, and you have to have some time when you talk as humans and not just talk about business. Now, I'm not saying that you have to be their best friend or even that they have to like you, but they do have to trust you and respect you as an expert so that they'll spend time learning from you and letting you learn from them, sharing insights and those kinds of things we talked about earlier. But to determine if someone is truly a champion, and I call that a coach, as someone who will coach me, I ask them, hey, G, could you give me some coaching on how the other people at your company view this problem that you're having and all the different solutions that you're considering? And then I listen to what you say. And if you're giving me very superficial or, basic information, I know you're probably not a coach. But if you're saying to me, listen, Alice, let me tell you, Jim over there, he doesn't like it. But Susan, she's a big proponent, and I think we can get her on our side, and she's going to help us out. So why don't I arrange one of those cocktail video meetings you like to have, and we'll send Susan a bottle of wine and get her on the call, and we'll talk about how we're going to really do this together, right? So you can hear the kind of like, they say, well, we are looking at other competitors and this and that, but it's very superficial. When they're willing to give you the inside scoop, that's when you know that they're going to help you. And when they fulfill your requests. So I might say, gee, listen, I know the CEO is going to have to get involved in this one, but I know she's very busy. So what do you suggest is the best way for us to get her in the loop and give her just the information she needs, but not take up too much of her time? Then you're willing to tell me how to do that and help me get that done? I know you're a true coach or champion. So this person has to show me with their actions, right? Show me with their words and what information they're willing to divulge to me. And that's how I know that they're truly going to help me with my solution. Now, that still doesn't mean we're going to win, because there may be somebody else in there that has a strong coach from my competitor, but it will let me know whether that person is indeed a coach or champion.
No, that's really, really insightful. I really like the part about, you know, trying to understand what do they know about the overall situation, and are they just giving, you know, as you said, very like random little arguments and not really like in-depth solution, and also asking the person to commit in doing something. I think it also shows the envy of switching. I know that time is flying, so we're gonna go with the final question. I like this type of question because it's essentially like, from your experience, what are typical mistakes that you see, you know, when it comes to sales process or sales qualification? If you have to name 2 to 3 mistakes that you often see and where you think that people really, like, if they pay attention a little bit more, could really do like and make a bigger difference.
Well, I think with qualification, the first problem is we're not talking to the right people.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard to qualify the person who doesn't make the decision, right?
True.
I mean, so we can ask them questions and get information, but then I don't really know whether this opportunity can move forward because they're just not the right person. So I think that's a big mistake. We don't talk to the right people. Now, that doesn't mean we can't start with someone who doesn't know, but we can't qualify that person. We have to get them to help us meet the people who can tell us whether it's good to proceed or not, right? So I think that's a big problem. We just simply talk to the wrong people, or we don't talk to enough people before we either disqualify them or qualify them, either way. Right? So I think qualification is not a quick process unless you have a simple sale. Look, with my client that sells telecommunications equipment and services, if you just signed up with a new service and you have a contract, you're all set, you're happy, nothing to do right now. And that's quick, right? But I'd like to know when your contract runs out, so I might have an opportunity then. But when I'm trying to sell you software that's going to cost you $300,000 or $400,000 or $500,000, and it's going to impact thousands of people, that is a longer qualification process. I need to take my time, and you need to take your time, so we can learn whether this is a good fit or not, and then move on to the stage where we dig into the details of how we would implement it and all the things that need to happen. So the first thing is talk to the right people. The second thing is take your time, right? And allow that time. Don't just say, oh, well, this person doesn't have they said there's no budget, I'm done with you. Well, listen, if the CEO wants this, they'll find a budget for it. I'm talking to the right person, they'll figure out how to get the CEO to release the budget.
Yeah, that's very true. Any other like mistakes that you'd like to add where you see people like doing either like maybe sometimes it's during the discovery call or in the closing phase, or I don't know?
Well, what you and I already talked about in the discovery call, when the salesperson talks too much, they give too much information. That is a big mistake. It turns people off. They don't want to talk to you, and they don't want to introduce you to their boss, because are you going to just talk the whole time? No, I'm not going to introduce you to my boss. You're scaring me with how much you're talking. So you have to prove to me in the discovery that you are an expert, that you can solve my problem, and that you're going to listen to me and bring me insights. So the mistake of talking too much is a very common one, and we just simply have to stop doing it. And the way to stop talking too much is, like we said, to research and prepare, ask the questions, listen, wait. Is there anything else? And then move on. So in your discovery calls, you have to be great listeners, and then take the information you hear and feed it back and give some insights so that person wants to continue telling you more. So yeah, don't talk too much during your discovery call.
That's awesome. Alice, it was really like a pleasure having you live in the community. For everyone, again, you can connect with Alice on LinkedIn. Please make sure to mention that you've seen her in the sales automation family or talking to me directly, so she knows, because she receives tons of information. Alice, anything you want to add?
Well, it's been a pleasure talking with you. I really enjoy talking about sales, as you can see. And I just want to remind everybody that I truly am here to help. So if you do have a question, please ask it to me, and I will be happy to help you as best I can.
That's super kind, Alice. Thanks a lot. Have an amazing day, everyone. Take care.